Michael Bennett sat on the edge of a creaky motel bed, his fingers trembling as he counted the last of his crumpled bills. $58.23, barely enough for another night in the dingy room he had called home for the past 2 weeks. The wallpaper peeled in long, jagged strips, and the faint smell of mildew hung in the air, a stark reminder of how far he had fallen. He ran a hand through his graying hair, slicked back but unwashed, and exhaled a shaky breath. Just a year ago, he had been on top of the world, private jets, tailored suits, and a penthouse overlooking the city skyline. Now, he was nothing more than a broken man surrounded by unpaid bills and empty liquor bottles. Michael clenched his jaw, pushing back the bitterness that threatened to consume him. He had trusted the wrong person, his business partner, the man he once called his best friend. All it took was one fraudulent deal to collapse the empire he had spent decades building. Investors pulled out, lawsuits followed, and creditors circled like vultures. And just like that, he lost it all, his company, his home, and even his marriage. Amanda had left with barely a word, taking what little remained of his pride with her. Michael's phone vibrated on the nightstand, breaking the silence. He snatched it up, hoping for good news, but his face fell when he saw the notification. Another debt collection notice. He tossed the phone onto the mattress and leaned back, staring at the stained ceiling. Desperation gnawed at him. He had tried everything, job applications, odd gigs, even borrowing money from people he barely knew. Nothing worked. He was invisible to the world, a relic of past success that no one cared to remember. His eyes wandered to the crumpled lottery ticket on the nightstand. He had bought it on a whim at the gas station earlier that day, telling himself it was just for fun. But now, in the dim light of the room, it felt like his last shred of hope. Scoffing at his own foolishness, Michael grabbed the ticket and his phone. He searched for the winning numbers, half expecting disappointment, but his heart stopped when the results appeared on the screen. 17, 24, 36, 42, 50, and 12. He read the numbers again. And again. It couldn't be real. But it was. Michael shot up from the bed, his pulse racing. He checked the ticket one more time, his hands trembling so badly he nearly dropped it. Every number matched. Every single one. A laugh burst out of him, loud, sharp, and disbelieving. Tears burned his eyes as relief flooded through him. $45 million. It wasn't just money, it was salvation. For the first time in months, Michael felt alive. He clutched the ticket like it was the most precious thing in the world, already imagining the phone calls he would make and the people he would prove wrong. He grabbed his jacket, stuffing the ticket into his wallet. Tonight, he would celebrate, not in this miserable motel room, but somewhere that reminded him of who he used to be. Michael stepped out into the night, a new fire in his step. He didn't notice the shadowy figure watching him from the parking lot. Michael strolled down the dimly lit street, the crisp night air biting at his skin. But he didn't feel the cold. His mind was racing with plans, paying off his debts, reclaiming his name, and maybe even starting a new business. For the first time in months, the weight of failure seemed to lift from his shoulders. He pushed open the door to a small bar at the edge of town. The neon sign above it flickered, and the place reeked of spilled beer and stale smoke, but it didn't matter. Tonight wasn't about appearances. Tonight was about reclaiming the confidence he had lost. Whiskey. Neat, he said to the bartender, slapping a 20 on the counter. The first sip burned, but it warmed him in a way he hadn't felt in years. As he sat there, staring at his reflection in the mirror behind the bar, he almost didn't recognize himself, the hollow eyes, the lines etched into his face. But none of that mattered now. Everything was about to change. "Rough day?" a voice asked. Michael turned to see a man with greasy hair and a crooked smile slide onto the stool beside him. "You could say that," Michael replied, downing another sip. "Well, you don't look like you belong here," the man said, eyeing Michael's faded suit. "Got a secret, do you?" Michael froze. Did he look that out of place? He shook it off. It didn't matter. No one knew about the ticket. Just celebrating, Michael said with a forced smile. Celebrating what? Michael hesitated, but the alcohol had loosened his tongue. Let's just say my luck turned around. The man smirked. Well, good for you. Luck's a rare thing in this town. Michael nodded, trying to ignore the sudden unease in his gut. He tossed a few bills on the counter and stood up. Where's the fire? The man called after him, but Michael didn't look back. Outside, the cool air sobered him. He reached into his pocket for his wallet to double-check the ticket, but his stomach dropped. It was gone. His hands frantically patted his jacket, his jeans, and the bar's entrance, but there was nothing. The wallet, along with the ticket, was missing. No, 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 he muttered, retracing his steps. He burst back into the bar, scanning the floor and the stools he had passed. Hey, did you see a wallet? He asked the bartender, his voice panicked. The bartender shook his head. Sorry, man. Didn't see a thing. Michael's breath quickened as he staggered outside again, his eyes darting along the sidewalk. He tried to stay calm, but his heart was pounding. It couldn't be gone. Not after everything he had been through. Farther down the street, Jenny Parker picked up a worn backpack and slung it over her shoulder. Her fingers brushed against the edge of a crumpled wallet she had found just minutes earlier, tossed near the curb outside the bar. She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. The man who had dropped it had looked like he didn't belong here. She wondered what kind of story his wallet might tell. When Jenny peeked inside, her breath caught. There, folded neatly between the worn leather, was a lottery ticket. Her heart raced as she stared at the numbers. She had memorized them from the gas station sign earlier that day, the winning numbers. Jenny stuffed the wallet back into her bag, her hands trembling. $45 million. Her first thought was her mom. That money could pay for her treatments, get them out of the trailer park, and maybe even buy a real house. But guilt crept in just as quickly. It wasn't hers. Her fingers hovered over the ticket again, tracing the numbers. She took a deep breath. Maybe this was her ticket out. Jenny sat on the edge of the worn-out couch in the dimly lit trailer, the lottery ticket clutched tightly in her hands. The faint hum of the refrigerator filled the silence as she stared at the numbers again, her pulse quickening. She couldn't believe it. $45 million. Her mother's soft coughing broke the stillness. Jenny turned to see her lying on the thin mattress in the corner, her face pale and drenched in sweat. The medicine wasn't working anymore, and they couldn't afford the stronger treatments the doctor had recommended. Jenny bit her lip. The ticket could fix everything. They could leave this place, the leaky roof, the cracked windows, the broken dreams, and start fresh. Her mom wouldn't have to suffer anymore. But it wasn't hers. Her chest tightened as her conscience fought her desperation. She imagined the man who had dropped the wallet. He looked like he had lost everything, but then again, so had she. Jenny, her mom's weak voice snapped her out of her thoughts. She quickly stuffed the ticket back into the wallet and shoved it under the couch cushion. I'm here, Mom. Her mother opened her eyes, barely able to focus. Did you eat tonight? Jenny forced a smile. Yeah. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. She was drowning in guilt, her mind spinning with questions she couldn't answer. How could she give up a chance to save her mom? And how could she live with herself if she didn't? The sound of heavy footsteps outside startled her. She peeked through the thin curtains and saw Ray Porter approaching, the man who had been threatening her mom for weeks over unpaid bills. Jenny's stomach twisted. She opened the door before he could knock. Got something for me, Jenny? Ray's grin was sharp, like a knife. We don't have it yet, Jenny said, forcing her voice to stay steady. But I'll get it. Ray leaned in closer. You said that last week. Time's up. Just give me a little more time, she pleaded. Ray's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Jenny thought he might shove past her. Instead, he smirked. Fine. 2 days. After that, I come back, and it won't be to talk. Jenny watched him walk away, her hands shaking. She knew he wasn't bluffing. Her eyes fell back to the couch cushion where the wallet was hidden. Maybe this wasn't stealing. Maybe it was survival. Meanwhile, Michael wandered the streets, his mind spiraling into panic. He had checked every inch of the bar, retraced his steps twice, and even begged the bartender to let him search behind the counter. Nothing. His breath came fast as dread settled in his chest. This ticket was his last chance, his only way out of this nightmare, and now it was gone. A flash of movement across the street caught his eye. A girl, probably 12 or 13, was walking quickly, clutching a backpack like it carried something precious. Michael froze. He remembered seeing her outside the bar earlier, near the curb. Hope flared inside him, and he took off across the street. "Hey!" Jenny stopped, her heart leaping as she turned to see the man from the bar running toward her. Michael's voice softened when he saw the fear in her eyes. "Wait, please. I need your help." Jenny gripped her bag tighter. "I don't know you." "I lost something," Michael said, his voice desperate. "A wallet. It had something really important in it. Have you seen it?" Jenny hesitated, guilt flooding her chest again. She shook her head. "No. Sorry." Michael's shoulders sagged, and Jenny hated the look of defeat on his face. But she couldn't risk it, not yet. "Okay," Michael said, stepping back. "If you do, please." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled business card. "Call me. I'll make it worth your while." Jenny nodded, but as he walked away, she felt the weight of the ticket pressing down on her more than ever. Michael sat in his motel room, the dim light casting long shadows on the peeling walls. He stared at his phone, hoping it would ring, but it didn't. The girl hadn't called. His mind kept replaying the moment he saw her clutching that backpack. Something about her hesitation had stuck with him. She knew something. He was sure of it. He stood and grabbed his jacket. He wasn't going to sit here and wait. He needed answers. Jenny paced the small living room, clutching the wallet. Her mom was asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. The ticket felt heavier now, like it was burning a hole through the fabric of her back. Her thoughts raced. She had lied to him, the man from the bar. Michael. What if he was dangerous? What if he had lost the ticket because he didn't deserve it? But another thought gnawed at her. What if he was just as desperate as she was? A knock at the door jolted her, and she froze. Jenny? Her heart sank. She knew that voice. Michael. She stepped to the window and peeked out. He stood there, looking less threatening than she remembered, tired, beaten down. But his eyes were sharp, searching. Jenny cracked the door open just enough to see him. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Michael said quickly. I need to talk." Jenny hesitated before opening the door a little wider. "You followed me?" "I had to," Michael admitted. "Look, I'm not proud of it, but that wallet, it's mine. And the ticket inside it? It's my last chance." Jenny bit her lip. "What if it's my chance too?" Michael blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" Jenny stepped aside, letting him in, but her hand lingered on the door as if she might slam it shut at any moment. Michael took in the room, the worn-out furniture, the cracks in the walls, and then he saw her mom asleep in the corner. The pieces started to click. "Is she sick?" he asked softly. Jenny nodded. "And we don't have the money to help her." Michael exhaled slowly. "So you think the ticket is your way out?" "It could be," Jenny said, her voice trembling. "But I didn't steal it. I found it." Michael's expression softened. "I believe you." Jenny's eyes widened. "You do?" "Yeah." He looked at the sleeping woman again. "Because I know what it feels like to have nothing." For the first time, Jenny didn't see Michael as the enemy. She saw someone who understood what it was like to be desperate. "I'll give it back," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you have to promise me something." Michael's gaze locked on hers. Anything. You have to help my mom. Michael hesitated, but only for a second. I will. Jenny pulled the wallet from her bag and handed it to him. Michael's fingers shook as he took it and opened it, his breath catching when he saw the ticket still tucked inside. Relief washed over him, but so did guilt. Thank you, he said sincerely. Jenny nodded, but before either of them could say more, there was a loud knock at the door. Jenny's eyes widened in panic. It's him. Who? Michael asked. Ray. Michael quickly tucked the ticket back into his wallet and slid it into his pocket. Stay behind me, he whispered. The door rattled as Ray pounded harder. Jenny! Open up! Jenny's mom stirred but didn't wake. Ray's voice grew sharper. I know you're in there. Michael's eyes narrowed. You trust me? Jenny swallowed hard and nodded. Good, Michael said, stepping toward the door. Because we're not letting him in. Michael stood firmly between Jenny and the door, his pulse quickening as Ray's pounding grew louder. Open the door, Jenny! Ray's voice was sharp, cutting through the thin walls of the trailer. Michael motioned for Jenny to stay back, then opened the door just enough to face Ray without letting him inside. Who the hell are you? Ray barked, his eyes narrowing as he sized Michael up. A friend, Michael said evenly. And I think you should leave. Ray smirked, but there was a dangerous edge to his grin. This doesn't concern you. It does now, Michael replied, his tone steady. Ray leaned in closer. I don't know who you think you're protecting, but Jenny and her mom owe me. And if I don't get my money soon, things are gonna get ugly. Michael didn't flinch. We'll get you the money. Give us time. Ray laughed, a low, menacing sound. You think I'm gonna take your word for it? Forget it. 2 days, or I start collecting in ways you won't like. Michael didn't back down, but he didn't push either. He waited until Ray finally turned and stalked away, slamming the door of his truck as he drove off. Jenny let out a shaky breath and sank onto the couch. He's not going away. No, Michael said, locking the door. But we'll be ready for him. Jenny looked up at him, her eyes full of doubt. Why are you helping us? You don't even know me. Michael hesitated before sitting down across from her. Because I know what it's like to be backed into a corner. To feel like you've got nothing left. Jenny studied him, her guarded expression softening. Michael continued, I had it all once, money, success, respect, and I lost it. But that ticket, it's my chance to make things right. And now it's yours too. She nodded slowly, wiping at her eyes. I just don't know how we're gonna keep it safe. Michael pulled the wallet from his pocket and set it on the table between them. We'll protect it together. But we need a plan. Over the next few hours, Michael and Jenny worked out the details. Michael would keep the ticket, but he promised Jenny that a portion of the winnings would go toward her mom's medical bills. In return, Jenny agreed to trust him and, reluctantly, to let him take the lead if Ray came back. As the night stretched on, the tension eased. Michael told Jenny stories about his old life, about high-rise offices and expensive dinners, about deals that made millions overnight. Jenny listened, wide-eyed, but her questions were sharp. If you had so much, she asked, how did you lose it all? Michael's smile faded. I trusted the wrong person. Someone I thought was a friend. Like Ray? Jenny asked quietly. Michael nodded. Exactly like Ray. Jenny thought about that for a long moment, then said, I guess money doesn't fix everything, huh? Michael smiled faintly. No. But it can help you start over if you're smart about it. Jenny's voice softened. Is that what you're trying to do? Michael hesitated before answering. Yeah. And maybe help you do the same. By morning, the uneasy alliance between them had grown into something more. Michael fixed the broken lock on the trailer door, ran to the store for groceries, and even managed to pick up some medicine for Jenny's mom. Jenny was cautious at first, but as the day wore on, her walls began to lower. She caught herself smiling when Michael cracked jokes, and she felt a flicker of hope she hadn't dared feel in a long time. But the brief sense of security shattered that evening when Jenny returned from the corner store and saw Ray's truck parked outside the trailer. Her stomach dropped. She crept closer, heart pounding, and saw Ray talking to Michael through the screen door. Ray leaned in, his voice low but sharp. "You think you can protect them? You don't know who you're messing with." Michael stood his ground. "Try me." Jenny's chest tightened as Ray turned and walked past her, throwing her a look that sent chills down her spine. Michael opened the door just as Jenny ran up. "It's okay," he said quickly. "He's just trying to scare us." Jenny shook her head. "No. He's not just trying." Michael put a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "We'll handle it. But we need to be smart. No more risks." Jenny swallowed hard and nodded. As the night fell, both of them knew this wasn't over. Ray wasn't going to back down, and if they were going to survive this, they had to face him head-on. Michael sat at the small kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. Jenny sat across from him, nervously drumming her fingers on the tabletop. Neither of them spoke, but the silence was heavy, weighted with unspoken fears and unasked questions. Outside, the night was quiet, but Michael couldn't shake the feeling that Ray was lurking somewhere in the shadows. "We need to get out of here," he finally said. Jenny looked up. "And go where?" "We can't leave Mom." Michael exhaled slowly, running a hand down his face. "I'm not saying we run forever. Just long enough to figure out our next move." Jenny shook her head. "We can't leave the ticket behind." "We won't," Michael said, pulling the wallet from his pocket. He set it on the table, and Jenny's eyes locked on it. "But we can't keep hiding either. Ray's not going to stop." The sound of an engine rumbling outside made both of them freeze. Jenny jumped up and peeked through the curtain. "It's him," she whispered, her voice trembling. Michael was on his feet in an instant. "Get your mom," he said. "We're leaving." Jenny hesitated for only a second before rushing to the corner where her mother slept. Michael stuffed the ticket into his jacket and grabbed a duffel bag Jenny had packed earlier. But before they could move, the front door burst open. Ray stepped inside, his face dark with anger. Two men followed close behind him, their eyes scanning the trailer like wolves circling prey. "Going somewhere?" Ray asked, his tone mocking. Jenny's mom stirred but didn't wake up. Jenny shielded her instinctively, her small frame tense with fear. Michael stepped forward, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "You need to leave." Ray smirked. "Not without what's mine." "You don't own them," Michael snapped. Ray's smile faded, replaced by something colder. "I own their debt. And that means I own them." He took a step closer, but Michael didn't back down. "Whatever you think you're owed, it's over." "We have the money," Michael said, reaching into his jacket and pulling out the wallet. "You'll get what you're owed. Just leave them alone." Ray's eyes flickered to the wallet, and a dangerous glint appeared in his gaze. "That so?" Before Michael could react, Ray lunged. The wallet tumbled from his hands, landing between them. Both men dove for it. Michael grabbed Ray's arm, twisting it back, but Ray's men moved fast. One of them shoved Michael hard, sending him crashing into the table. "Run, Jenny!" Michael shouted as he scrambled to his feet. But Jenny didn't move. Instead, she dove for the wallet, clutching it tightly against her chest. "Give it to me, girl," Ray growled, stepping toward her. "No!" Jenny yelled, backing away. Ray lunged again, but Michael tackled him, slamming him against the wall. The trailer shook with the impact, and one of Ray's men tried to pull Michael off. Jenny's heart raced as she looked down at the wallet, then back at Michael struggling to hold his ground. She knew this was her chance, her only chance. Without thinking, she grabbed her mother's hand and pulled her toward the door. "Michael," she shouted. Come on. Michael turned just in time to see Jenny and her mom slip outside. He delivered one final punch to Ray, knocking him back, and bolted for the door. They didn't stop running until they reached Michael's car parked 2 blocks away. He threw the duffel bag into the back seat and helped Jenny get her mom settled before climbing into the driver's seat and starting the engine. Jenny clutched the wallet tightly, tears streaming down her face as they sped away. "Is it safe?" Michael asked, glancing at her through the rearview mirror. Jenny opened the wallet, checking the ticket. It was still there. "It's safe," she said, but her voice was shaky. Michael's grip on the wheel tightened. "We're not out of this yet." Jenny wiped her tears and looked at him, her expression hardening. "Then let's finish it." Michael nodded, determination setting his jaw. He wasn't going to let Ray win. Not now. Not ever. The car sped down the dark highway, its headlights slicing through the night. Michael's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Jenny sat in the back seat, holding her mother's frail hand, while the wallet rested securely in her lap. "Where are we going?" Jenny finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Someplace safe." "But Ray's not going to stop," she said. "You know that." Michael's jaw tightened. "I know. That's why we're not running anymore." Jenny's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Michael said, his voice firm, "we're going to end this." An hour later, they pulled into an abandoned gas station at the edge of town. The place was quiet, too quiet, but Michael had chosen it for a reason. It was out of the way, and more importantly, it gave him the advantage. He turned off the engine and faced Jenny. "Stay here. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me." Jenny shook her head. "No. I'm not letting you face him alone." "Jenny." "No," she snapped. "We're in this together. I won't let you do this without me." Michael stared at her for a moment before finally nodding. "Fine. But you stay close to me. No matter what happens." They didn't have to wait long. Ray's truck roared into the parking lot, its headlights sweeping across the cracked pavement. He stepped out, flanked by the same 2 men from earlier. This time, one of them was carrying a crowbar. Michael stepped forward, shielding Jenny behind him. "Hand it over," Ray said, his voice low and dangerous. Michael didn't move. "You're not getting it." Ray smirked. "You really think you can stop me?" "I know I can." Ray's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold fury. "You don't know who you're messing with." Michael took a step closer. "No, Ray. You don't." Ray lunged, but Michael was ready. He dodged the first swing and delivered a hard punch to Ray's jaw. Ray staggered back, but his men moved in fast. Jenny watched in horror as Michael fought them off. He held his ground, but the odds were against him. One of the men swung the crowbar, grazing Michael's shoulder and sending him stumbling to the ground. "Stop it!" Jenny screamed, stepping forward. Ray grabbed her arm and yanked her back, holding her tightly. "Let her go!" Michael shouted, struggling to get back to his feet. Ray held up a knife. "Not until I get what I came for." Jenny's heart pounded as she clutched the wallet to her chest. "Give it to him!" Michael yelled, his voice desperate. "No," Jenny said, her voice steady. She looked Ray dead in the eyes. "You're not getting it." Ray sneered. "You're just a kid. What are you gonna do?" But before Ray could react, Jenny stomped down hard on his foot and twisted out of his grip. She ran toward Michael, but Ray lunged after her. Michael tackled Ray to the ground, pinning him as Jenny scrambled to the car. She locked the doors and reached for her phone. "I'm calling the cops," she yelled. Ray's men hesitated. "Let's go," one of them shouted, grabbing Ray's arm and pulling him to his feet. Ray pointed at Michael as he backed away. "This isn't over." They jumped into the truck and sped off, leaving Michael breathing heavily on the ground. Jenny ran to him. "Are you okay?" Michael winced as he sat up. "I'll live." Jenny handed him the wallet, her hands still shaking. "We still have it." Michael looked at her, his expression softening. "You were brave." "So were you," she said. He smiled faintly, but it faded quickly. "This isn't over, Jenny. He'll be back." Jenny nodded. "Then we need to be ready." They drove to the nearest police station and reported everything, raised threats, the break-in, and the attack. Michael handed over security footage from the gas station, which he had secretly recorded with his phone. For the first time, he felt like they had a real chance to stop Ray. As the officers took their statements, Jenny stayed close to Michael, her hand gripping his sleeve. "What if they don't believe us?" she whispered. "They will," Michael said. "And even if they don't, we'll fight. Together." By the time they left the station, the sun was rising, casting a warm glow over the horizon. Jenny leaned against Michael as they walked to the car. "Do you think this is over?" Michael glanced at her and then at the wallet in his hand. "Not yet. But we're getting there." Jenny smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. And as Michael started the car, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. The hum of the car engine filled the silence as Michael drove back toward the edge of town. Jenny sat in the passenger seat, clutching the wallet in her lap. Her mom slept soundly in the back seat, exhaustion finally overpowering her frail body. Michael's shoulder ached from the fight, and his knuckles were raw, but none of it mattered. They still had the ticket. And for the first time, he felt like they might actually win. Jenny broke the silence. "What happens now?" Michael glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "First, we make sure your mom gets the help she needs. Then, we figure out the rest." Jenny looked down at the wallet, her fingers tracing its edges. "I still don't get why you're helping us." Michael smiled faintly. "Maybe because you remind me of who I used to be." Jenny tilted her head. "You were like me?" "I was desperate," Michael admitted. "I thought money was the answer to everything. I let it define me, and when I lost it, I lost myself too." Jenny frowned. "But this ticket, it's gonna fix things, right?" Michael hesitated. "Money can help. But it can't fix everything." "Not really." Jenny studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I guess it's not about the money. It's about what we do with it." Michael's lips curved into a smile. "Exactly." Later that afternoon, they pulled into a hospital parking lot. Michael helped Jenny's mom inside, explaining the situation to the staff while Jenny held her mother's hand. For the first time, Michael saw relief wash over Jenny's face as doctors whisked her mom away for tests and treatment. "Thank you," Jenny whispered as they sat in the waiting room. Michael leaned back in the chair, exhaustion catching up with him. "You don't have to thank me." "But I do," Jenny said firmly. "You could have taken the ticket and left us. But you didn't." Michael looked at her, his expression softening. "Because you didn't give up on me either." Hours later, the doctor returned with good news. Jenny's mom would recover with the right treatment they could now afford. Tears streamed down Jenny's face as she hugged Michael tightly. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that things might actually get better. Michael swallowed hard, the weight of everything sinking in. He had spent so long chasing money, believing it was the only thing that could save him. But standing there, watching Jenny and her mom, he realized he had been wrong. It wasn't the money that saved them. It was trust. It was sacrifice. It was hope. The next morning, Michael stood outside the lottery office with Jenny by his side. He adjusted his jacket nervously as they waited for their appointment. "Are you sure about this?" Jenny asked. Michael smiled. "I've never been more sure." Jenny clutched the ticket as they stepped inside. The process was quick: verification, paperwork, signatures. Within an hour, the ticket was confirmed, and the winnings were secured. As they walked back to the car, Jenny's eyes were wide. $45 million, she whispered. What are we gonna do with it all? Michael stopped and looked at her. We're going to change lives. True to his word, Michael didn't keep the fortune to himself. He set up a trust fund for Jenny and her mom, ensuring they'd never have to worry about money again. He paid off their debts, bought them a new home, and covered every medical expense. But he didn't stop there. Michael used the rest of the money to start a foundation for families in need, people like Jenny who just needed someone to believe in them. Jenny became his first volunteer, helping other kids and families who had faced the same struggles she once had. And through it all, Michael found something he had been missing for years, a purpose. 1 year later, the afternoon sun bathed the small community center in golden light. Laughter echoed through the open space as children played and families gathered around tables covered with food and crafts. Michael stood near the entrance, watching it all with a sense of quiet pride. The foundation he had started, the Hope Project, had grown faster than he ever imagined. It wasn't just a shelter or a charity, it was a place where people rebuilt their lives, just like he had. He glanced toward the corner of the room, where Jenny was helping a little boy stack blocks. She had grown so much in just a year. Her hair was neatly brushed, and the shy, uncertain girl he had first met had been replaced by someone confident and full of life. Michael smiled as Jenny looked up and caught his gaze. She gave him a thumbs up before turning back to the boy, her laughter ringing out like music. Later that evening, after the event had wrapped up, Jenny joined Michael outside as he locked up the building. "You sure you're ready for this?" Michael asked, handing her an envelope. Jenny took it and opened it slowly, her eyes widening when she saw the college acceptance letter inside. "I still can't believe it," she said, tears filling her eyes. Michael chuckled. "Believe it. You earned it." Jenny hesitated, her voice soft. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Michael shook his head. "You were always stronger than you thought. All you needed was a little help to see it." Jenny smiled and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for everything." Michael's voice caught in his throat as he hugged her back. "No, Jenny. Thank you." As they walked toward the parking lot, Michael paused to look up at the sky. For so long, he had chased success, thinking it was the only thing that could define him. But standing there, he realized that the most valuable thing he had gained wasn't money or security. It was family. Jenny climbed into the car and rolled down the window. "Ready?" Michael nodded, slipping into the driver's seat. He glanced at her one last time and saw the future in her eyes, bright, hopeful, and unbreakable. "Let's go," he said, starting the engine. And with that, they drove off toward a new beginning.